Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host Mitchell J. Rabin, and we're very glad you're joining us again today. Today we're going to have another very interesting show. We have with us in the studio Elizabeth Joyce. She's a nationally and internationally renowned psychic. She has spent much time with different spiritual teachers and is really a woman who is wise herself beyond her years. She'll be speaking with us about some very important, extremely pertinent information about what's going on in this time that we're all living in. A new world, you could say, from 9/11. She is someone of very few who actually predicted the falling of the towers. It was published on her website back in January. So this is a woman with some very keen, astute insight into what is going on. These are things that come to her, and she'll be sharing with us some very vital information so that we can all guide ourselves in a much higher and more grounded way. So Elizabeth, great to have you.
That's my pleasure to be here.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Good, good, good. So spending time with you has been just very enlightening.
Oh boy.
I have been learning things that I didn't really want to learn. But in fact, they are of such importance, I feel, and such dynamism that I was very pleased that you wanted to come and share your insight and knowledge with the audience.
You know, we're in a very special time, Mitch. We chose our birth. We chose this time. And I really believe that in the long run, after we go through this 12-year process, that we are going to start entering the 1,000 years of peace. And let's just say that the Twin Towers experience, the Pentagon experience, and luckily the averted LA experience is a kicker. It's an offset to say, wake up. It's time to go within the heart. It's time to come from the fourth chakra instead of the third chakra. And it is time for us to begin to understand that we have to honor others as well as ourselves and include them in our vibration, because we're not single anymore. We are all
unified.
One. We are becoming one. And I think it's exciting. I think it's really exciting.
Definitely, it's very exciting. And it's a very interesting way of putting it too, because rather than placing and locating an enemy, so to speak, outside ourselves, you're really suggesting, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're all part of one unified field. And
no, I'm saying
whatever it is that's going on seemingly out there is also somehow or another going on inside us.
I cannot tell you that we cannot dislike, disrespect, and may even feel feelings of hate about what happened with the Twin Towers.
Oh, yeah.
That anger is justified, and that anger is, I hope, going to teach us that we will not, cannot, and must not accept evil. Not only must we not accept evil, we must not try to forgive it. Because if you do, you bring it in even more. Many, many people miss that. What you want to remember...
That's a radical point of view.
It's a point of view that I feel is valid. What we want to remember is that our consciousness can't hate back to the point of where we want to harm ourselves more or harm society more. We want to look at it as a great lesson, as evil and as vicious as it was. We've had other evil and vicious things happen. We had the Africa event where 200 people were blown up and killed. We had the Oklahoma bombing where people were blown up and killed. It cannot be accepted. It cannot be tolerated. That's what I'm saying. It is evil. It needs to be called evil. We cannot say, let's forgive it. Of course not. We have to say, let's stop it. Let's dismiss it from the planet. Let's get that energy out of here. Which is a different view than what most people are taught.
I would say so.
Okay.
Well, it depends on who you trace. I mean, the Christian view or whatever. There are different perspectives on this. But I would like to get into with you the point of view you have from the visions you've had, from the seeing that you've had, about what is taking place now. And what do you see for the next couple of years?
The main thing that's taking place now is a complete transformation of our belief system. And it's not only in America, it's also throughout the world. We are transforming ourselves from the power to the few to the power to the all.
Of the many.
We are transforming ourselves from corporate power, from the decision making of, I'm going to make a decision for you, Mitch, to manifesting our own lives in a more harmonious way. That's the first thing that's going on. We are
So the
going
idea, you could say, of self-empowerment,
Self-empowerment,
greater sovereignty.
absolutely.
Love
Absolutely.
it. This is good.
The
We've
second-
been waiting for a while for that.
And we've worked very hard at it. When you just think of getting the women to vote, when you think of getting the black people to vote, we have worked very hard over the past 100 years or so to bring in a more conducive society.
Truly.
Okay? So now we're at the point of crisis. It's become a crisis. What is America based on? What is the foundation? And we are resetting that foundation, not only here, but in other countries as well. Because as you know, we have the Arab nations at this point helping us and aiding us and saying, no, we are not going to let a Taliban or any other organization bring in this evil, which brings me back to my original sentence, that will not be tolerated, period. That's correct thinking. So you then do your meditations, raise your vibration, go into the oneness with whoever your master is, so that you cannot be pulled down into that energy, and then you create out of the higher energy, and that's going to bring a higher vibration to the planet, and that's going to bring us more of the oneness with the universal energies, which is what we need.
And that's also well put, that's also a transmutation of that anger.
Absolutely.
That appropriate anger,
correct.
but it does need to be worked with.
Correct.
You
But
know.
not forgiven, not tolerated, but worked with so that it can be transformed into a higher vibration. That's right.
Now, when we were discussing all of this, you were beginning to talk, Elizabeth, about different places where you felt were more vulnerable to attack at this
Yes.
point.
I don't
And which
think
ones
the
are not?
attacks are over. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's implicit.
Well,
Yeah.
there are
and what do you think
two-
is up right now? And you had certain feelings and opinions about living in cities and all of that. Why don't you spell that out?
The one message about the cities, unfortunately, is get out of the cities. Because the cities are going to become melting pots. The cities are going to become hot pots. I'm afraid that as we go down the road more and more, that we're going to have bombings of the cities, suitcase bombs, people walking around. You won't be able to know whether they mean harm or don't mean harm. The cities are vulnerable. But the two places on the planet right now that are vulnerable, and we are in the latter part of 2001 here, are Washington, D.C. and Rome.
And Rome. Because of the Vatican?
No, the Vatican is not the main point, but the Vatican will unfortunately suffer for what is the main point. We have two things in Rome. We have the retired Shah from Afghanistan, and we have the home center of the Northern Alliance. So Rome is in trouble. Rome's a target. Washington, D.C. is also a target because they feel that I sense, I have to say that, I sense that they feel that they haven't done enough there and they did not get their goal. They did not get the Capitol. They did not get the White House. In actuality, Mitch, as I shared with you before, and I did get this verified through, my sources, that there were 7 aircraft. I knew there were 7 aircraft. There were 2 for Washington, D.C. There were going to be 2 for L.A. Then I knew there was another that I wasn't quite sure, and that wound up being Detroit to Chicago. And then there were 2 for New York. Okay. And
Chicago for the Sears building?
the Sears building and the LAX airport. Now, the strangest thing, and I told you yesterday, the strangest thing was when the Islamic schools in New York, and there's 4 or 5 of them, held class that day on September 11th, which was a Tuesday morning, and none of the children went to school. So there must have been foreknowledge throughout that community of this event.
Yes.
It's very sad because we do know now for sure that the police and part of the government were warned about this event and did not follow through with it. So maybe their lesson is that if a psychic like myself or anyone else that's doing the work calls up and says, look, I really want to share an insight with you. This is about terrorism and this is about a feeling that I have. It has to be checked. And the president now has made arrangements that if you hear anything, you must follow through with it, which is to their credit. So maybe it won't be laughed at anymore, and maybe our inner signals, which of course is always picking up other people's thoughts. When I teach people about psychic awareness, when I teach people about getting an intuition or getting a telepathic message, what I say is it's only a thought until it occurs. And you can transform a vibration into not occurring or into going to a higher level if you wish.
Sure.
There's always choice.
In fact, everything that you're saying, Elizabeth, is in a sense subject to people's working with the vibration.
Absolutely.
And shifting it if they so choose, or if people collectively decide to do that.
Now, as I told
Literally
you before,
shape the future.
as I told you before, I was walking the beach in Fort Lauderdale, Florida in April, and the first poem that came to me was 3 Presidents in 3 Years in 2003. What does that mean? Will something happen to Bush? Will something happen to Cheney? Well, 2003 is an election year. So it could mean that they'll have one and then another and then the election. So that's one thing that happened. After the Twin Towers, the day after the 11th, which was September 12th, I got another poem inside of me that was extremely interesting. China financed it. Saddam Hussein planned it. Bin Laden carried it out. And I told that to some of my military contacts who didn't quite get it. They thought, well, gee, no, China wouldn't have whatever. And then, of course, 6 weeks later, in the Washington Post is an article about how China might have helped the Taliban. Right on the money. Right on the money. It's a matter of weeding out the truth. There is so much that is covered up for the ego or for shame.
Yep.
We aren't told a lot of things
Truly.
because people may have failed. People may have let us down. The last presidential organization may have let us down. They cut back on the military. They cut back on secret investigative people. They may have let us down that led to the event.
But even still, I mean, those causes are so complex. Just
Correct.
3 weeks before this event, it was either bin Laden or one of his chief spokespeople was interviewed in London. And they said at that time, 3 weeks before, the United States is in for the biggest attack ever.
And it wasn't.
this was on
it
the-
isn't just one attack. There's more coming.
Not to say, right, I don't mean to
Right.
say that, but that they're in for the biggest attack is what was said. And this was in the first day of news when on 9/11 itself. They said, well, we have found this report, blah, blah, blah. Where was the CIA, I wonder?
There was a 6-year-old child in Brooklyn that looked out the window and said in 1 week, those buildings won't be standing there.
We spoke about
Right,
that.
we
Exactly.
did last night.
Exactly.
Spoke about that. So
So what do we need to know
knows?
from your vision and your perspective, Elizabeth? What should people know about what they should do, where they should be for greatest safety and security? And yeah, that's a good place to
It's very,
start.
very hard to tell somebody to leave their home and
Indeed.
leave their family. My heart goes out to the people overseas that have had everything bombed, people in Croatia, people in other areas that have lost
Oh, yeah.
everything.
Sure.
But I am getting a message. I am getting that we have to go north. I am getting that we're going to begin to settle Alaska. I am getting that we need to be up on the 50th parallel, which is Montana, the state of Washington, Upper New York State, and the New England states, that they will be safe territories. I also do know that the top of mountains, so let's go to the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, let's go to the Rockies in Colorado, and down in the south it would be the Great Smokies or some areas, I believe, in Arkansas. The Ozarks, that's what I was trying to
Ozarks,
think.
yeah. Uh-huh.
And then, of course, you can go into South America. China has a mountainous area, South America does, parts of Europe.
Be away from the cities and the shorelines.
Be away from the cities and the shorelines. Now, the shorelines are coming into vulnerability for a different reason, and that is the proton belt. The proton belt,
Do tell.
which is a force of energy that is in space, is headed towards this universe. This is a natural occurrence that cannot be changed. And it will cross over our universe. And as it does, this may be the Edgar Cayce and Nostradamus predictions of changing the world's axis. It's arriving in
the polar
2004.
shift?
The polar shift should happen when the proton belt hits. That makes sense. It arrives in 2004 and it lasts until 2012. We will see the beginnings of it over the next 3 years, Mitch, because it's starting to hit. The outer vibrations of the proton belt are hitting now. So what are we going to see? We're going to see a heavy winter snow. We're going to see more hurricanes. We're going to see higher sea levels. as we get rocked a little bit. Now, scientists believe, and you can get this information from the NASA website and some of the scientific research websites, they believe that this has happened 36,000 years ago, and that was why the dinosaurs left the planet. They're trying to predict what they think it will do, and they're trying to predict what they think will shift based on the Earth's core plates. And then we have also the melting of the ozone layer. So we have a lot of things happening.
No
at the
question.
Same time.
A major confluence between natural occurrences and human occurrences.
So let me tell you what I see.
Which might be related, and I'm sure are related anyway, biologically.
I see congregation communities coming together. And I see them being protected. I call them the bluebell communities, because as the color of your tie, I see them being covered with that turquoise blue, and that these people are going to commune together and form communities together as we go into these changes, both on the physical earth and with the proton belt coming. And that they're going to do their meditations and their prayer work, and they're going to live in a community level until such time as it passes over. That's what I see happening in safe areas. Our next president, which I feel will be a new president, for some reason, I don't know why, in 2004, is going to be instrumental in helping us go to safe places. And he's going to be a walk-in. It's already been set up that our next president is our walk-in, and I do believe that he'll have a female vice president.
Now, why don't you just come out and say who you think that is?
Well, I'm not sure who the president will be. Rudy Giuliani would not surprise me. I felt for the first time last week that Christy Todd Whitman might be the vice president. She's going to be very glorified and honored for her work in environmental protection. She's going to be doing many, many things that are going to be helpful to our planet. And that just has come through
It
meditation.
can't happen fast enough as far as I'm concerned.
That's true.
It's run amok. But what, Elizabeth, do you feel that people can do to deal with? You say the attacks aren't over, far from it. To be safe in communities, in the places that you mentioned,
They got to keep their eyes open. They got to keep their eyes open.
Are there
even
other
in
things
the
that
cities.
people can somehow do, or in a way of engaging each other to avert? Like, let's just use this as an example, if I may. We were talking about the New York Yankees and the games, okay? And you will have an insight and have a sense that something might happen, that there's a vulnerable spot, and you'll start to do something both on a psychic level as well as on a practical level, like contact authorities, etc.
Right.
So in that way, what would you recommend that people pay attention to and do?
Well, I think our president, George Bush, has already set up something. He has said, contact the FBI and let us know. They have a website now. CNN has a website, and the FBI has a website where you can go and you can write something down. You ought to be able to do that anonymously. I have a sense that this could be happening in Denver, or this could be happening in LA, and send it. And then let them, if you don't have contacts, at least write it down and let them follow through. The second thing that you need to do is keep your eyes open more. You never know who your neighbor is. You never know who's down the block. Go around and meet your neighbors and tell them that you're glad that they are your neighbors, and honor them, and sort of
That'd be a great thing for New Yorkers.
Sort of kind of keep your eyes open. I think one of the greatest things that someone did in my town was, after the 9/11 upset, they went and rang every doorbell of their neighbors and introduced themselves and said they were glad. I'm glad you're my neighbors. This is who we are, and this is what we're doing, and let's keep in better contact. We should do that. We should keep our eyes open. You never know when you're going to see something that's important. You never know.
That's right.
You could have somebody come over and say something, and it doesn't quite sound right. Well, I went to a meeting, and this is what was said at the meeting, and I'm just, telling them, and you're uncomfortable. You need to do something about it. Yet you don't want to take away human rights. You don't want somebody to come to your house with a gun and say, I'm going to search your place, or take your camcorder camera, or take your guns. They're going to want to take camcorder cameras and their guns. You have to protect yourself financially, which means you're going to have to change the way you think about money. You're going to have to start having your gold and silver. You want gold and silver, and you want to change the way that you think about money. You need to realize that maybe your retirement funds are vulnerable if they're in mutual funds. You need to understand that the stock market
did you say?
Are vulnerable. You need to...
Slash robbable.
No, they're vulnerable in mutual funds. You need to understand that as much as our life has changed in America, where we had mutual funds and retirement in CDs, now we have them in the market, and that is the first most vulnerable place. Proven. It was in trouble before 9/11, but after 9/11 it really bottomed out.
Right.
So don't put it there. Realize that may now become an ancient way of dealing with money, and that there's other ways that will have a better alternative. Do you know what was under the Twin Towers?
Gold.
Gold and silver. Most of our silver holdings in America were under the Twin Towers, as well as gold.
Is that so? Most
of our silver content, as I understand it, is under the Twin Towers, as well as a lot of our gold, which is no longer in Fort Knox. It never has been.
Well, it was actually
moved
a
to New
Canadian
York and
bank.
Denver.
It was a Canadian bank, Bank of Nova Scotia, I think, that had most of the gold underneath the World Trade Center.
Well, they got to find it. It's going to take them a year. I think they will. I think they will find it.
Amazing.
But we have to pray. The prayers have worked, Mitch. For example, let me just share.
Yeah.
You know, I had a feeling about the Miss America pageant and that it was vulnerable. And you know I had a feeling about Yankee Stadium, which was vulnerable. And I did put this up on my website, and I did say it was a possibility. Remember,
why don't you tell
thoughts
the
are
website
possibility.
right now for people to tune into?
My website is www.new-visions.com. So that's a dash in the middle, not an underscore, and it's visionsplural.com. But I did have that up there, and I asked people to pray, and I asked people to come out of their homes at 7 o'clock every Friday night with a lit candle. And I asked them to just toast the universe, toast the unity, toast the oneness of the planet, to raise the vibration. But remember, when a clairvoyant makes a prediction about the future, it's there to warn you. It does not have to happen. It can be a thought, but until it's a decision, until it's a reality, it's only a thought. And thoughts can be changed, as Louise said, one of my greatest teachers.
Right.
Louise Hay.
Louise Hay, sure, of course. But when you have a vision or a thought of certain types, I imagine that they have different emotional qualities and tones to them that give you a greater or a lesser sense of their verity. Is that so?
My thoughts aren't emotional. My thoughts come in one of three ways. I either see it, hear it, or feel it and sense it. So if I only hear it, then that's one vibration. If I get all three at once, then that's another vibration.
Okay.
If I hear it, see it, and feel it at the same time, as I did when I helped with the president of Exxon's murder, I absolutely knew categorically what had happened the second that it happened. And the reason was because my father worked for Exxon for 49 years, and so I was more in tune on that timeline.
So you were emotionally tuned in.
Right.
But
there's
I
just
don't
so
know
much to
anything
learn about how that
what
works.
you're referring to now, about the Exxon president.
I helped the FBI solve the crime. I described what happened. I told him where he was. I told him when he died. I told him where the body was and how it was buried, and that it was a couple. I described the whole thing with them for over 6 weeks until they did find the people, and everything that I had said actually was verified and happened later on. And Unsolved Mysteries did that show for me. I did
that was the
Unsolved
subject
Mysteries.
of the
Robert Stack
segment.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
And I know that's been shown around the country 2 or 3 times already.
Yes,
They've
yes,
repeated
yes.
it.
God.
Yeah.
And you've been getting thousands and thousands of hits at your website from that, as I recall.
And lots of letters. And
Yeah, exactly.
Working with clients.
beautiful.
I work with groups and I work individually with clients.
Right, exactly. Wow, you
good.
sure sent me for a loop yesterday. I'll tell you that.
Well,
about
it's interesting
things.
work.
It's very
you never
interesting
know.
work.
You never
Extremely.
know what is going to come when you sit down and a person says to you, "You can look into my aura." You never know what's going to come.
God. We don't know what is deeply seated. You know, we have some ideas.
But it gets pulled out, right, Mitch?
Oh, boy. And it is for the good, Elizabeth, I will
Always,
say.
always.
Truly for the good.
Always.
It's a very wonderful service that you're providing.
There are a lot of people,
It
though,
truly
let me
is.
just finish with this. There's a lot of people that say, "I can't take it. I don't really want to hear it." I had one girl look at me and say, "I love you, Elizabeth Joyce, but I'll never be back because I can't hear this. I don't want to clean up my act. I don't want to. I have to do what I'm doing. I'm not going to change, but thank you."
Wow. Incredible.
I'm about having you look at what your soul needs to clean up so that you can raise to a higher vibration and to the level of God realization.
That's right. That's right. Now, on that note, and I think it would be valuable to say that you're a student and very close to Amaji.
Amaji, the Amritananda Mai,
And Babaji.
and my avatar Babaji.
And so
Yes.
you have lineages to which you're connected
Yes.
that are informing, infusing, and inspiring.
I feel that's where
Much
my
of your
messages
work.
come from.
Yeah,
as
uh-huh.
they say.
Exactly,
Which is good.
exactly. Well, listen, I really am so pleased to now become a friend of yours, and that we're able to share this kind of information with people. God bless you too. Thanks so much. Play this tape over and over again, folks, because you want to hear these words over and over again and bring them close to your heart so you can live in accordance with these words and act accordingly from them. Thanks so much for joining us. This is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World, and we look forward to seeing you all next week.
Hello, this is Reena Majid, and yes, this is A Better World. Today we're doing a special edition of The Better World, and I'm introducing and interviewing the host, your normal host, Mitchell J. Rabin. He'll be talking about the AIM program, which he's been involved in for the past 2 years. Mitchell is a psychotherapist, a holistic psychotherapist, an acupuncturist, an educator, among other things. So please help me welcome Mitchell J. Rabin.
Hello.
Hi, Mitchell. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Does this mean you said normal host? Does that mean I'm normal?
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Not in the normal sense.
Right, right. No, you are definitely not. But
So-
anyway, today you wanted to have me help you talk about or help you introduce the AIM program, which you've been doing involvement for the past 2 years.
That's right. That's right. We decided to do this format because it may be a little bit more interesting than just me talking alone. So I hope that ends up to be the case. I love when people ask me questions. After all, I spend so much time asking others questions. So on that note.
And today he's in the hot seat. So would you please tell us about the AIM program?
Sure, sure. The AIM program, you've heard me talk about it before. is based on the work of Stephen Lewis, the author of this book, Sanctuary, The Path to Consciousness. That's right, nothing like a nice close-up on that. And Steve Lewis is a subtle energy physicist. He's been involved in physics, he's been involved in homeopathy, he's been involved in acupuncture for many years. And he was in private practice out in Hollywood, essentially, for a number of years, working with the Hollywood crowd and working with energy healing, imprinting liquids, for instance, with certain energetic values or signatures. And people would take these drops and much healing has taken place. Anyway, as a form of this, as an outgrowth of that, the AIM program came into existence, which is a method by which he can help many thousands of people, even hundreds of thousands of people, with healing, because it's non-local, it's remote healing.
It's amazing.
It's an advance in technology that allows this to happen based on the holographic principle of quantum physics. And that's the micro-macro relationship between an object such as, particular objects, such as saliva, blood, hair, or photograph. And people have been using this for a long, long time, actually. And in this case, Steve uses a photograph.
Right.
So, in effect, we take photographs of people, we send them out to the West Coast, where they're placed on a metal tray. That tray is hooked up by electrodes to a huge database on computers, which emits frequencies conducted through the electrodes into the metal tray to the photograph, which is itself a holographic representation of each individual on the tray. And as you know, and I know, people who are on this, in this system, go through a detoxification
Yes.
and a subsequent healing.
Right.
So, a famous science fiction writer, Rena, said that any technology sufficiently advanced has the appearance of magic. And it could well be that even in this day and age where things are well advanced, we put people into space, we go send missions to Mars, we have computers that are the size of molecules, we have computers that actually even exist and are composed of water. We have things technologically that are so far advanced that this is part of that. And yet there are some people who find this all very, unusual.
It is unusual. It's definitely unusual. It's hard. I know it took me a while to understand the whole concept of how a photograph on a tray in California could get to me and help me with whatever is ailing me, or genetically. I know a lot of it clears up genetic
Imbalances.
It took me a while, but I started feeling it in my own body, and actually got helped with a major chronic situation I was dealing with. So I know from experience, and it took me some time to integrate the whole thing, but I definitely felt it in my body, and I want to thank you. Actually, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing with this. I know a lot of people have gotten a lot of help with it.
Thank you.
Including myself. So
thank you.
for all
Thank
the
you.
work that you're doing with this.
Thank you. It's sometimes a bit thankless, so I appreciate the thanks.
Right.
Yeah.
You tell us what you think. Someone who this is the first time they're hearing about the AIM program, or the people who have been on and would like to come again. What do they need to know that you'd like to tell?
Well, people who are on it, it sort of like speaks for itself. What really happens, I'm in this, living it every single day.
Right.
I get phone calls from all over the country every single day. I have people going through stuff, on all different levels every single day. I see it up close. And what that looks like is there are people who can report on what they're going through. They are good reporters of their own subjective experience, and they can kind of stand outside themselves and look in and see, oh, I feel a difference here and I feel a difference there. My walking is different, my thinking is different, my feeling is different. You know, things that were bothering my knees are no longer bothering my knees. My indigestion is no longer a problem. Da, 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 da. And there are other people who go, huh?
Right.
Are you sure you put my photograph there? Or is this
I've heard you say that, yes.
snake oil? You know?
Right, right.
Snake oil.
And I say
But-
for the people who don't feel anything, be grateful, because there are people who really suffer, well,
Exactly.
suffer the detox, and in the end, it really is for the good, because you're really clearing all of this out of your body.
That's right.
And, yeah.
For those who don't feel anything, it's not so bad. As Rena says, be happy.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people who go through a painful detox, and you are one of them who went through some of it. I went through it much more mildly.
Right.
But in a sense, the AIM program, that highlights a point, doesn't add anything to you. What it's doing actually is helping to tease things out that don't really belong there for proper homeostasis of the body-mind. You know, things are always impeding and blocking life force. And what really the AIM program is doing is helping to build life force. And when the way it's really happening is by removing things that don't belong there. It's actually in accordance with the ancient Taoist teaching of non-interference, that basically everything is well and everything is perfect in this planet, in this universe, in this life, except that we allow things to get in the way. It's sort of like, or even the Buddhist perspective, that the sun is always shining in the sky, but sometimes a cloud or two passes by and obstructs and intrudes upon the perfection. So similarly, that's how I understand AIM is moving out the obstructions, the impediments. And it's done because everything is energy. So it can be done on the level of energy. If everything is energy, everything has a certain signature, you could say, or a certain frequency, a certain measurable vibration. And Steve has identified many of those. I mean, they've been identified in the body of work of homeopathy, in the body of radionics, in other electrical-based, frequency-based technologies. Surely, I mean, this is not the only place.
So when he finds something, an imbalance, then he has a balancing frequency that will then...
That's exactly right.
analyze.
Exactly right. A good way of understanding it is exactly that.
So these frequencies are being beamed, so to speak, at the photographs, and then this
Beam me up, Scotty.
this particular energetic whoever that
Energetic
person-
matrix.
formation or matrix, whatever,
Right.
will then accept whatever frequencies it needs to balance itself,
Exactly.
and that happens in stages.
Yes. In other words, one of the breakthroughs that Steve Lewis has brought to the fore in this whole field is this idea of the Rosetta Stone frequency,
This is
not the
very
Rosetta
interesting.
Stone. No, frequency. And what that means is, that's to say that there is a frequency that is in the database which gets broadcast to us, which essentially empowers the individual to select just those frequencies from the array of frequencies, many thousands, in a hierarchical order, like triage or priority, that the individual needs for his highest or her highest, quickest, and most efficient clearing and healing.
Right. And by the way, this also involves, it's not just illnesses. I understand it's also things with things that need to be balanced out, like maybe anger, other feelings, and
It has to do totally with the mind-body spirit, really.
right. So what are some of
And
the things?
in fact, first of
like
all,
feeling,
I have to say, because it's an important point, and we emphasize it all the time, which is that we don't deal with illnesses. In fact, we don't deal with anything but imbalances and energetic imbalances, which are essentially spiritual in nature. And the body, you could say, is the receptacle, the vessel, or the expression of those imbalances, and it could come out in the form of what we may refer to as diseases. But in no way is this a medical program. This is dealing with them on the level on which they initially occur, which is in the energy body. Some refer to it as the etheric body, but it's not medical. It's not diagnostic. It's not curative.
Right.
Yet, when one clears the energy field of the imbalances that we're talking about, things happen on all levels, you know. There's a simultaneity to it.
Yes, I've witnessed this many times.
Yeah, yeah. So was there another question that was behind that one that I ignored? Or was...
I don't remember, but I just know, what are some of the, I know people call you all the time and talk about results that they're getting. Would you share with us some of, or would you like to share with some of what people are
Sure.
dealing with
Sure,
and
sure,
getting
sure.
cleared up from?
Sure. There are many stories. One that came across my desk the other day was one I just really was very amused by. A Canadian mother, an older woman, I think in her mid-70s or so. Her daughter put her on the AIM program. And she started to get all perky. And she started to have a lot more energy in her life. And she started to do more. She was resting less, and she was more productive in her day-to-day life. She was playing golf more. Well, what happened? Well, that's good. That's a great report. We like to hear it. She did go through some detox. She had some pretty serious headaches for the first week or so, and then that seemed to subside. And then it was like, golf, anyone? You know?
She got the headache. She used to have the headaches, or she got them?
No,
when she was detoxing?
she had some problems like joint pains and things like that. But when the detox kicked in, she began getting serious headaches.
So why would that be? As part of, I mean, would that be something maybe she had been experiencing, she had dealt with in the past that was coming up for clearing, or just part of
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what happens. I mean, people go through some level of hell before they reach heaven.
Right.
You know, that's kind of the paradigm, and
Because the body's
it's different.
letting out all of these
Yeah,
toxins.
as I said before, Rena, the AIM program doesn't add anything to the system. What it does is take things away. So you could say that there's a proportional relationship between the detoxification experience people have and how much they're mucked up. You know? I said muck, you know? And so to the extent that they have to be cleared is the extent that they may feel, subjectively experience the detox.
I see.
So it's not pleasant. So people say, why am I going through this, that, and the other thing? I say, well, you know what? It could be that you've been ignoring your body and your mind and your emotions for a lifetime or two. And it's all now being cleared in a rather concentrated, orchestrated, focused way. And they go, oh, you know, well, I think it's still the AIM program. Well, it is the AIM program, but not in the way they think. It's the AIM program kind of lifting the veil off, if you will, and allowing the clearing to occur. Okay. Now, I want to just say parenthetically, before going back to the Canadian woman, it does not work for all imbalances. While there are thousands of imbalances in the database, it will be rather variable. Who benefits from what?
It's still a work in progress.
It is a work in progress.
It's not, you know, there's nothing out there that cures or helps everything,
Yes.
balances everything, but it certainly helps a lot of
That's right. It really does. And
conditions
what goes on is it shows up differently in all different people. That's just, that's just the reality of the situation. When somebody goes to a healer, for instance, no matter how highly reputed they are, some get results and some walk out disappointed. It's just the reality of the situation. I've been in the healing world for many, many years, like 20 try. And as a therapist, as an acupuncturist, as a stress management consultant, I have seen people be happy and walk out glowing. I see others mope out and say, this guy, and it's not that I didn't do my best, but it is related to so many variables that are unaccountable for. One has to do with the combined karma of the client and the practitioner. One has to do with the chemistry. One has to do with the psychological and emotional dynamics between them. There are all these variables, the intentions of both, and are they across purposes or aligned? All of these have very real, and in the healing context, magnified implications relative to the results that will be gained. So I'm just saying this as someone who has been in the field of holistic healing for many years, and this is the truth with the medical profession as well, with conventional medicine.
Exactly.
This is just the way it is, the nature of things. Theoretically, it's for everyone at all times, and because everything is energy, everything has a frequency. If you find the frequency, boom, it works. But nobody, Steve Lewis or anybody, cannot fully handle the entire panoply of problems and imbalances that truly exist on planet Earth.
Right, we're complicated beings.
Very complicated.
And yes.
Now, can I come back for a moment to the Canadian woman? I've left her hanging, and I don't think that's fair.
Right, because well, actually, because I want to ask you one more thing, and if that while people are on the AIM program,
We'll be back.
if this is what they should solely depend on, or should they be doing other things? But you know. You can
Okay,
get to
well,
that
let me
after
get
the
to that.
Canadian woman.
Okay, you really want to keep me going here and not have a moment's rest here. I see.
As I said, you're in the hot seat today.
Okay, so this woman, blessed be she, started being so active, picking up her golf game and all of this. Her husband got jealous. This is a real world situation, you know. Her husband started to get a little ticked off because he was still moping along at the same rate that he was, and they both were for many years. They had the same rate of mope, and all of a sudden this has changed. There was no other change in the woman's life. She didn't start eating raw food. She didn't start sleeping an extra hour. She didn't increase her exercise yet. You know, nothing was different except for the AIM program. This subtle, non-local photograph over on the West Coast. Who cares? What of it? Right. Hey, I feel great. Let's go play golf, you know. And soon she's playing tennis, I heard. No, I'm kidding. But her husband then went to the daughter and said, hey, you know, I want to be on this too. Yeah. And they put him on, and now he is on too. Good. And they're both actually playing golf. He started skiing. He started skiing. He hasn't skied in years. So anyway, that's just one. You know, that's just one. Amazing. There's a nurse who had chronic fatigue up in the Boston area who just, you know, she was lying in bed. She had to quit her job, and she was convalescing, nursing herself. And but she was not employed. She couldn't work. She couldn't hold a job. And she got into the AIM program, and she had tried a number of different things, and nothing gave her results palpable enough for her to become employed again and get back on her feet. She got into the AIM program, and literally it took about 3 months, and she was feeling life again in her body. Her life force went shooting up, and she's now gainfully employed and happy, and she moved, and last we heard she had a boyfriend.
How long has she been on the program total? Now,
maybe about 6 months. Maybe 7. Yeah. So that's another example. There are many. Oh, there's another story in Canada about a guy who was very severely depressed, actually suicidally depressed, and his sister had written this to me.
Well, not all, but it helps depression.
Yes, exactly. And when we say that there's a frequency for depression in the database, which creates a rebalance, if you will, in the individual, in the participant. So I just want to let people know just verbally again that Steve Lewis, the author of Sanctuary, The Path to Consciousness, is going to be in New York Sunday, November 18th at 6 p.m. at the Shelburne Hotel between 37th and 38th Streets, 303 Lexington Avenue. It's a free talk, free demonstration of the technology. It's fascinating. And let me tell you, there's another important thing, if I may raise, Rena, and that is we're living in a very difficult, very challenging time period now for humanity.
To ask you about this.
Okay,
yes, exactly.
This is very important, and I really want to make the point that Steve Lewis and I have been talking about this from the day we met we've been talking about, in reality, biological warfare.
Yes.
And he shared his views on it with me. We've talked at some length.
Yeah. And it sounded, kind of crazy
Sounded
back then.
really far out.
What was, going
really
on.
far out.
But Steve talked about this, as Mitchell was saying, years ago.
Oh, yeah. And he has, a great geopolitical awareness and knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And things have been going on for a long time. And as a result, he has been tracking the presence of anthrax in the United States for years. And just as one example, and he has the frequency for anthrax in
so you're saying
the
that
database.
Anthrax has been in the United States more than the last 2 months.
My first interview with him, he was very clear about it.
Mm-hmm.
And not just anthrax. That's like almost like kid stuff in comparison to what's really around.
Mm-hmm.
And this is perhaps the only system that I know of that deals rather comprehensively with the frequencies that relate to what we refer to as biological warfare. And it must be said that there is no greater protection than one's own immune system. There is no man-made thing, I don't care who you are, who is better and higher than the immune system. So any great healer knows that if he or she is going to be successful, it's going to be because they have aligned themselves with an individual's life force and immune system and has figured out a way to increase, educate, and uphold them, uplift them.
To help that person heal themselves.
Exactly. Exactly. That's what happens.
Right.
In fact, I'm glad you said that because that's really the essence of this.
Mm-hmm.
The AIM program actually doesn't heal anybody. It empowers the individual to heal themselves because that's the only thing that ever can and ever will and ever has.
Right.
That's just the nature of things.
Yes.
And it looks like that healer put his hand on my forehead and said a couple of magic words and I'm healed. But that's not actually it.
Right. It helps to facilitate, whoever or whatever it is helps to facilitate.
Exactly.
Healing, right? Which brings me back to that question that I was asking about, should people be doing, just depending solely on the AIM program once they get on there, or should they be doing other things, or how does that work?
The answer to that is that people should do anything and everything in their power to take good care of themselves. I think it's a mistake for people to come into the AIM program and think that somehow they are now, heavenly blessed in such a way that, they can walk through walls and they can walk through fire and they can do it. It
Not
really
to worry about
isn't.
Anymore, eat anything, whatever.
Right, and just to be abusive.
Right.
It's just not true. Steve, hurt his ankle, on the treadmill or something like that and went to an acupuncturist. He goes for chiropractic and he tells everybody, and everybody should know this anyway. They don't need Steve Lewis to tell them to go and take good care of themselves. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is just, it comes with the body. Take good care, and that's just the way it is. And I see AIM as part of an integrated healing program, so to speak, that it provides what I consider to be sort of like an energetic backdrop or support that uplifts the life force enough for other things to be more effective, actually. Mm-hmm. You have to start with enough sufficient life force in order for other, let's just say, other therapies to be effective. You have to start with some gold to make more. Mm-hmm. So I speak to people all the time. And I see sometimes the AIM program is helping to clear certain things up for somebody, and it leaves a lot that's not yet been done. And I make certain dietary recommendations. I make certain exercise recommendations. I sometimes recommend Qigong for people. I recommend meditation. I recommend lots of very interesting things, because that's my background and that's me. Right. But in fact, needless to say, dietary considerations, supplement considerations, exercise considerations, attitude considerations, belief system considerations are large in my book.
And common sense.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly. That's the biggest. And underneath that is water. Pure water. And I'm big on air too. I just like
Which
oxygen.
is not very good these days.
That's
at
right,
least
that's
here
right.
in
And
New
we
York.
deal with that a lot too. We deal a lot with water and air purification, and I am, very lucky to work with some of the top people in these fields in New York. So
Yes.
we assist a lot of people in these domains as well. So what have I not answered
yes,
that
this is
you
one.
want? Anything?
Well, I'm trying to think of what people need to know for this particular. I mean, there's so much more that we could get into with the ink program, but I think we have helped people to understand what they need to come, and we hope you will all be able to attend. So, thank you very much for joining us, and Mitchell.
Yes.
again.
Well,
Okay.
thank you for having me as a guest on my own show.
Thank you for letting me pick your brain about this.
It's my pleasure, absolutely.
Okay, so please.
For this special edition of A Better World, thanks so much for joining us, and we hope to see you at the event November 18th, Sunday, 6 p.m. at the Shelburne. It's free. Come, bring your friends, bring your relatives. This is really the time to come and learn. Just come and learn about a fascinating system, which is really the wave of the future in healing. This is Mitchell J. Rabin, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.